Hello, righty ho. Here is the second of the 3 releases which Bad Dog Promotions have sent to me recently, and this follows on from the excellent Erewhon review that I did in a recent video a couple of 3 days or so ago. And this one is by a guy called Arnaud Quevedo, I think I've pronounced that properly, and friends, and it's titled Live Quintet 2025. And you can probably guess by looking at the cover graphic there, it's a quintet because there's 5 of them. Anyway, sorry, so I'm being slightly sarcastic. The accompanying blurb that came with it from AC at Bad Dog tells me that Arnaud is a multi-instrumentalist who is based in La Rochelle in France, and that the album comprises of tracks from 3 of his previous albums and 1 unreleased track, all rearranged for a reduced lineup of 5 musicians, hence quintet, and it was recorded live earlier on this year, 2025. Now, what made me a little bit hesitant about this was that the blurb mentions it's jazz fusion. Well, that's not a genre I've got any history with or particular fondness for, although I was encouraged to read further on in the blurb that Arnaud's influences include King Crimson and Gong, and that's no bad thing in my book, particularly Gong. But with the jazz fusion reference, forgive me, I couldn't help but think, if you remember it, do you remember the old Fast Show, right? And I couldn't help but think of the Fast Show and John Thompson doing his hello and welcome to Jazz Club, great bit, before introducing Jeffrey Jackson. If you're old like me, you'll remember that. If not, look it up. It's hilarious. Anyway, forgive me for that again. I dived in with an open mind to give this a fair crack of the metaphorical whip. But I have to tell you that first listen was a real ordeal for me. To my jazz-ignorant ears, it all sounded like a rambling, incoherent jam session without any structure at all. Anyway, again, I've given it a few more listens, and during which the performance and style has opened up to me a little bit, making more sense than it did on that first listen. The musicianship is very good. Arnaud and his friends can certainly play their instruments and perform very competently indeed. And whilst I can't say it converts me to wanting to get into jazz, the Gong influences certainly shine through, which I did like very much, being an old Gong fan myself. Arnaud's guitar is, when he lets loose, it reminds me very much of Steve Hillage, free-flowing, trippy. The bass is very much Mike Howlett, the saxophone just channels Didier Malherbe, and that crisp, precise drumming will remind you of Pierre Moirlin, just like it does for me. I could hear plenty of passages here and there that would have sat well on, say, Angel's Egg, You, or the Moirlin-fronted version of Gong. And those parts were pleasing to my ears, though the remainder of it's just not for me. I cannot for the life of me get into jazz fusion at all. So I have given it a fair crack of that whip that I mentioned earlier. And as I say, the musicianship and performance is excellent, but jazz fusion, it's not for me. It really isn't for me. But if you do like that sort of stuff, you might well find this to your liking. If you would, I will put a link in the description below to Arnaud's BandCamp page, so you can go and listen to it and pick it up from there if you'd like to. But say, I've tried, but it's just not for me other than the Gong influences. The third album that AC sent to me at the same time as this is by a band called Hom. And I've given that a few spins, and I do like that. I need to give it a few more before I review it, but that will be coming in a subsequent review shortly. But in the meantime, we'll leave it there for Arnaud and Live Quintet. If you wouldn't mind doing so, subscribe to the channel before you go, because that would be a big help. Thanks to AC to sending it to me. I'm sorry this one isn't for me. It's just not, other than the Gong stuff. But Hom will be in a future video soon, and I do like that very much. So until then, or until the next video, if there's one before that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and take care.